let's dive into this now. If you're going to buy a fix and flip, these are the steps on how you're going to remodel a home. So the very first thing, now again, we're discussing fix and flip. If you're going to remodel your own home, a lot of these steps will apply, but a lot of these steps will be done already. So for example, if you buy a fix and flip, let's say you closed today, it's Saturday, so probably you closed yesterday. Let's say you closed yesterday. And now it's going to fund and record on Monday, and Monday you're going to take possession, and Monday you're going to go to the house, and Monday you're going to open that door, and Monday you're going to start your project. Very first thing you're going to do is you're going to want to get the utilities on. It's amazing how many newer investors I have spoken with over the years through speaking nationwide on stage that come up to me and will tell me that they forgot to get the utilities on, and 2 weeks into the remodeling project the power was turned off, and the water was turned off, and the gas was turned off, right? And they had to go turn all those things back on. So step number one is utilities, turn those utilities on. And it's very important that if it's wintertime, step number two is you get the heat turned on, because this home is vacant. And during, let's take it back to the recession when 2008-9, a lot of the homes you were buying were foreclosed homes that were vacant and had been vacant for quite some time. And I remember going to see these houses, and it was a nice sunny winter, January, December day, and it was, beautiful outside with the sun. I mean, it was cold, but the sun was, beaming on you, so it felt kind of good to be out in the front yard, and you're looking at the house, deciding what you're going to do. You're looking at the roof, deciding what you're going to do, and then you open the front door and you walk in, and it's an ice box in there, freezing. I mean, more cold than it is outside, because the heat hadn't been turned on. They winterized the property to avoid, hopefully the pipes not bursting or breaking. But the house was an ice box. It just was so cold. You'd end up zipping your coat on or putting a coat on as you walked in the front door versus when you were outside. And so if it's wintertime, you definitely want to protect that investment and make sure the pipes don't burst. So, step number two is get the water turned on. If it's summer, you're going to want to start getting the lawn watered. Now, some of the homes you're going to buy, depending on where they are, may or may not already have a sprinkler system. And if they don't, you're going to, I typically, over the years, I've collected tons and tons of hoses. I'll buy a house, and we'll go to fix and flip it, and the owner, for whatever reason, just leaves the hose behind. It's not, I guess, that important. And so I will take these hoses, and basically what I do is I will distribute the hoses to my different flips, and then we buy those, self-attached hose sprinkler thingy. And I'll just tell my contractors, hey, when you're there remodeling the home, would you mind just turning on the hose and let's water the lawn? Because obviously if it's summer and that lawn doesn't get watered because it doesn't have a sprinkler system, the grass is going to die. It's going to become really yellow. When your house is all done and remodeled, and you go to sell it, curb appeal is huge. People are going to pull up, and if you've got a lawn completely dead, then it can deter people from purchasing your home because the curb appeal is so bad. So even if it's weeds, do what you want to do. But in my personal opinion, even if it's weeds, green is still better than yellow, and green is still better than dirt. So water whatever is there is typically better. Now I also I have a buddy. I don't know how many times he's done it, but he's at least done it once in a scenario where he told me a story where he purchased the property, they watered the yard, the lawn just didn't get very green, so they painted, basically. Somebody came with a big spray gun, and they spray painted the grass green. And they did that for the open house. So the day of the open house, everybody came, and there was a beautiful green lawn. Now eventually, the green faded, or I don't know, the grass grew in yellow, or I'm not sure, but the green went away eventually. But pretty creative to make sure green had presented the home with good curb appeal. So very important to get your sprinkler systems turned on and water the lawn. Then you're going to put a lockbox on your home, because the lockbox is going to be how you're going to minimize you going to open the door and let contractors in. You're going to just stick a lockbox somewhere on the back door, probably somewhere kind of discreet, and your contractors, that's how they're going to utilize the access to the home as they go in there and do the remodeling for you. So after that, I mean, and these are basic steps, but steps that literally people forget. I know a lot of new investors that don't even think about putting a lockbox. They call up contractors, and they literally will meet every single contractor at the house to let them in the home because that investor has the key. Rather than making a copy of the key, getting a lockbox put on the back door, you can now stay home, stay at your office, not have to go to the house, which is probably not the best use of your time, to drive over to the house and meet with contractors, every single one. Typically in the beginning, you will meet with contractors to put out a game plan. At the when I say the beginning, I mean the beginning of a remodeling a house. So the very first day, I'll show up and I try and organize all my contractors there in one shot, so we can get it all basically done. I don't have to go back to see my plumber. I don't have to go back to see the electrician. I don't have to go back to see the guy who's going to do the demo. We're all there together, and we have a game plan. We put it in place the day one. Then I put the lockbox, and I don't have to go back to let people in. Of course, I have to go back from time to time, but not to let necessarily people in. Okay, so then the very first thing we do once those things are done is we start demoing what we're going to demo. After demo, you're going to reframe anything you're going to need to reframe. So if you tore down walls, you're going to restructure walls. Framing is next. Then we're going to go to plumbing, electrical, and water heater furnace. I say the three of them. They're kind of all the next step, depending on who you ask. I was chatting with a contractor, and I really liked what he shared with me. Big props to Del Mickelson. I'm going to give him some props because he's the one who shared this. And basically, he shared with me that when you go to do your plumbing, electrical, and furnace, you start with the bigger material items first. So what's the biggest material item? Well, typically it's ductwork in a furnace, right? The ductwork that's going to run through the walls is bigger typically than the plumbing pipes or the electrical wires. So he says the best thing to do is start with the big stuff first. So after framing, according to Dell, which I have adopted that theory since then, we will then do furnace and ductwork, right? AC, furnace, ductwork first. Then we go to the second biggest material item, which is plumbing pipes, and then the third is the tiny little electrical wires. So for us, we go ductwork, water heater, furnace, water heater. Those are going to utilize the big material items. Then we're going to go plumbing, then we're going to go electrical. Okay. So then after that, you're going to run insulation, and you're going to then, after you put insulation on all the walls, you're going to insulate, you're going to throw up your drywall. Now, insulation, typically, code requires you to do it on all exterior walls, right? So anything that's going to be on the other side of that wall is the outside, you have to put insulation. And that's probably smart because you don't want the heat or the cool coming in. You want to keep your energy bill down anyway. Something to think about if you're remodeling, let's say, a higher end home, it's sometimes good to insulate interior walls for preventing sound from, let's say, there's bedrooms that are on the same level as the TV room. So if you insulate the bedroom walls, then if there are people watching TV rather loudly, or and you want to be in the bedroom quietly, it definitely helps keep it quiet. Sometimes I've seen people insulate in between floors. And again, these are typically, I should be more specific. People that I've seen do this are doing it in higher end homes, but are usually owner occupying those homes. It's not an investor who's trying to keep his costs down. These are people who are going to live in the home. They want to minimize the sound from room to room for privacy, for whatever reason. They don't want to hear the TV if they're trying to go to bed, but people are going to be watching TV. Can be a good idea for your owner occupied house. If you've got a noisy home and a lot of kids, maybe something you want to think about. Okay, after we've insulated the walls, we move on to sheetrock, basically drywall. So you're going to then drywall cover up the insulation. Now you're covering up the plumbing, you're covering up the wires, covering up the ductwork, and then you've now got all your walls put back together. So after that, you're going to texture those walls and put all the, whatever texture you're going to put on your wall. I highly recommend, before you start texturing, just hiring someone to texture. I've seen this from time to time where the investor will have a conversation with a mud guy. The mud guy is going to come and do the texturing on your wall, on your sheetrock. and they say, you know, how much is it going to cost to texture? But they don't discuss the style of texture. And they don't think about it, they just don't do it, and then the next thing you know, the investor leaves, the guy textures the house, and it's the completely wrong type of texture that the investor or homeowner had envisioned. My recommendation is Google texturing, texturing ideas, and show the individual who's going to be doing your texturing. It's a huge burden if somebody textures your whole house and it's the wrong texture. I've seen it before. Thankfully not. That was not a nightmare story for me, but I know a buddy who I'm literally chuckling because the texture was, wow, I've never seen any texture like this in my life. I don't know if the guy who did the texture thought it was very creative and it was inspired, you know, in some artistic way, but when my friend showed up, and then I actually went to see the house at another time, we could not stop laughing because it was the most unique texturing I've ever seen. Let's use that word, unique. So after texturing, then you're going to put on your doors, right? So if you moved locations of entrances for your bedrooms or anything like that, you're going to go through, put all the doors on. Then after that, you're going to do the base encase around the bottom of the floor, around your doors, any types of shelving that you might be putting in closets or anything like that. And once that's all done, you're then going to move on to paint. Paint, obviously, the paint can cost you, let's see, what's the best way to word this? The more taping off your painter has to do, the more that increases the price on your paint, right? So you definitely, I've had people ask me in many cases before, should we put our flooring down first or should we paint first? And the reason they, I guess, have that dilemma in their head is they're thinking that if they put the flooring down first and paint second, then they're less likely to have the walls scratched up by installing hardwood floor, let's just say. And that's happened to me a couple times where we painted and then we installed in a room. We decided to put some laminate. We thought we were going to put carpet. We put laminate, and then we started installing the floor. And accidentally, you know, these boards, these floorboards, get banged against the wall and scratches up your paint. But typically, if you put your flooring first, then what happens is the painter has to cover the floor, which takes more time, which increases the cost. So usually, just as a rule of thumb, you're going to paint before flooring. Okay, so paint is next, and then flooring is after that. You're going to do your flooring, tile, whatever, laminate, carpet, whatever's after paint. Then typically, once your flooring's down, this is specific to bathrooms and kitchen, now you can put in the cabinets. So if you're doing a brand new kitchen, you obviously can't put the cabinets on the floor until your flooring is there. So then the cabinets come in. Then you're going to basically do your finish for your bathrooms. Okay, so now what that means is your plumber's going to come back, everything's put together, the walls and paint, the flooring's all done. Now he's just going to come put the shower head, the faucets, all of that good stuff. So they call that finished plumbing. And then there's also finished electrical. That's when they come and actually now hang the light fixture, put the new light switches, so that's finished electrical. New sockets in the wall for your outlets. Then you're going to wrap it up with some windows. Now, windows typically, I like to do back kind of what I'm doing, base in case as well, because sometimes when you pop out a window, and this depends. So if you're doing windows, brand new windows, I usually like to do it back during the base and case phase. However, this list here is if the window's just cracked, you're keeping the window itself, but you're just changing out the glass. So then after finished plumbing, you're going to fix any broken glass. Then you're going to basically have your appliances come in. If you're flipping the home, you're probably going to put brand new appliances in, except for a fridge. Typically, flippers don't put a fridge, and the reason why is fridges are very personal. Most people have gone out and bought the fridge they love, so when they're moving from one house to your house, they're typically bringing a fridge with them that they already like. It's always negotiable. I mean, if you're not that guy, you're coming from a rental property and you don't have a fridge, you could always discuss with the homeowner, the seller, adding a fridge, negotiating that in. Carpet, After appliances, we do carpet very last. So when I talked about flooring, I should have been more specific. I apologize. I was talking about hard surface flooring, tile, hardwood, stuff like that. Carpet is the last thing that goes in because you don't want to have dust from your contractors, stepping on it. It's going to be brand new. So carpet will go in, and then basically you're going to finish it up with your doorknobs, hinges if you got the new doors, any vents. Now you went and bought new vents for your, the air conditioner flow. And then basically you're going to wrap it up with a cleaning crew. There's a lot of cleaning services out there. I see, I don't know, I can't remember the name, like Cleaning Maid, or I see these pink cars driving around town, something like that. They're going to come, basically clean up your house, make it sparkle, make it shine, and basically make it, literally, they're the final touch to make it move-in ready. So the day you put your house on the market, if you're flipping this, then somebody literally has a beautiful, remodeled, but clean home. The faucets are already, sparkling, and everything looks good. So those are going to be the steps of typically how you're going to want to remodel a home. Now, we went through a lot, and if you're thinking, shoot, I should have wrote all those down, don't worry, because we have on our social media page, probably by next week sometime, this show will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel. You can also go to K-Talk's podcast. K-Talk Media has a podcast on SoundCloud. Search for the show. But if you go to Utah Home Sweet Home, the name of the show, our show is called Utah Home Sweet Home, and you go to utahhomesweethome.com, click on YouTube, the icon for YouTube. Every show that we've ever done in the past is uploaded there. So you can not only listen to it, but you can watch the show. And so if you missed any of this show and you were, wishing you wrote it down, don't worry, you can definitely come back and find this show a little bit later. So basically, to wrap up the show, we're going to discuss a little bit of the exterior stuff that you're going to do. That was primarily all interior with the exception of the lawn, watering the lawn. But, you got to give the house some curb appeal as well. So as far as exterior things, you're going to clean up the yard, trim any trees that you think you're going to need to be trimmed. Sometimes homes are so overgrown. We bought a house that you couldn't even see the house from the street because it was so overgrown. We literally had to cut everything, and then, lo and behold, there was a house behind all those bushes. Any roofing repairs, you're going to do those right away as well. Any siding, brickwork, you're going to get those started right away as well. Right away meaning from the time that you purchase the home. And cement work, paint exterior, gutters, install shutters or mailboxes with the home numbers, and clean up the yard and driveway. Those are all things that you're going to start right with the beginning when you purchase the property. These are exterior items. Of course, we went through the interior items first. So, on that note, we are at the end of our show. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to Utah Home Sweet Home and myself discussing, fixing, and flipping properties. On that note, I hope you guys all have a spectacular day. And if there's anything I can do for you, please don't hesitate to visit our website, visit our social media, and reach out anytime. Thanks so much.